top of the hour.
Mhm.
Welcome, Neville Starick, and somebody I met through networking. That's from Australia. So I hope you might, in fact, enjoy his accent. And having been to Australia, I enjoy the accent from Australia. So I told you I'd been to Brisbane, right? One of my favorite
Yes, you
days.
did. You did. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Fascinating place. Yep.
Well, well, Neville does an interesting perspective on helping us think about our prosperous life. But he doesn't put prosperity in this box of just being money. He helps us apply it to all kinds of areas of life. And so I'm going to have him take it away and teach us about prosperity and how it can relate to quality of life and resilience. So welcome, Neville.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I've been sitting there exploring for a while in my work this idea of prosperity as quality of life, and I don't know if your audience is anything like my initial reaction to that was like, well, prosperity is just about money. It's about wealth. It's about assets, and it's like, well, actually. No, yes, it is, and no, it's not. It depends upon how you look at it. So I don't look at prosperity in terms of money. I think money is a distraction from the whole idea of prosperity. What I'm actually looking at is prosperity is about the quality of the life that you have, which is not actually dependent upon the amount of money that you have. And I've been looking at this whole idea of like five pillars of prosperity. So there are five things that money can't buy, but that make for a quality life. So one of them is the quality relationships that you have. Another one is having meaningful work or service. Now, I understand that a lot of your audience here are people who are retired and they don't actually have paid employment anymore, but they can still be involved in activities and service that is really meaningful to them, and that can contribute to their their quality of life. Okay. Number three is your physical and psychological well-being. And as we're getting older, that becomes a bigger issue to work through. And the healthier we are physically and emotionally and mentally, the better the quality of life that we can experience. So that's really important. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners here are at the point where it's just like, yes, I really need to pay attention to that side of things and take care of that. The fourth one is having the opportunity for rest and recreation and connecting with things that you love. And the rest and recreation stuff might seem a little bit of a strange thing to talk to about retirees, but because it's like, well, you've got all the time in the world for leisure. But the sometimes we get so caught up in doing that we forget to stop and we forget to rest and we forget to enjoy what we have. And so that's where the rest and recreation comes into play. And the last thing is the last pillar of prosperity, as I define it, is spirituality. And your spirituality may have a religious expression, but it doesn't have to. It's about how connected do I feel with the world at large, and it deals with things like purpose and value and direction and mission for life, and how I fit in the grand scheme of things, and how I understand the world operates. So those five pillars, money can't buy them. Money can certainly have an influence on how you experience that, but it doesn't guarantee that you are going to have a prosperous life. So these are the five areas that I focus on when I talk about prosperity.
Well, it's very interesting to put a value, in terms of money on our social activity. It gives it much more weight in that, I need my social activities to be worth $100 to me, not $2, and
Mm.
to build up and um, focus intentionally on our social connections,
Mm.
because they do hold a value, a prosperous value in your life. That's really
Absolutely.
interesting.
And it's fascinating because I mean even the attempt to go and put a number on it is like how can you put a number on the relationships that are important to you? They're actually priceless. It's like they're beyond putting a number on because they contribute something to your life that money just can't. It's like you can't create a relationship. You can't buy a relationship that is actually worthwhile. It's something that you have to create and something you have to build. And I think sometimes in retirement, one of the challenges is that a lot of the relationships that you have shift away because they're connected to your work or the life that work created for you. And suddenly, without that structure of work, suddenly a lot of those relationships don't seem to be there in the same way. And some of them even disappear because it's like, well, we no longer have a common tie that allows us to connect. And one of the challenges that I see of retirement, and I'm not there yet, but one of the challenges that I see is about how do I create new relationships or bring relationships from my pre-retirement days into my retirement so that I'm not sitting there left all alone.
Yeah, I guess how I'm kind of weighing it a little bit is that am I putting two bits into it, a quarter, or am I willing to think about it being 10 or $20 that I am willing to, well, like maybe take something to, in fact, one of our guys likes to take Krispy Kreme donuts to some breakfast meeting, I guess it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And he gets a big kick out of doing that because they enjoy it, and the donuts are still warm, I guess, from what I can tell him saying. But so he's investing in a way in that relationship by bringing donuts.
Okay. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a financial investment like your friend was doing, but it's certainly I like that whole idea of investing in a relationship. So sometimes the investing can be I'm giving time. I'm actually making time for that relationship. And
Right.
sometimes it's about the gift, which is what your friend is doing with the donuts, is I'm bringing a gift, and that really is exciting. Sometimes it's about giving words that actually help people to feel like they're affirmed and so on. Sometimes it's about doing an act of service. And sometimes it's about just being physically present for somebody and an arm around the shoulder or a handshake or holding a hand or something like that. I mean, what we're essentially talking about here is love languages and the things that actually spark people, and those contribute to those quality relationships, and those are things that can be cultivated no matter what stage of life we're in.
So you had another you called it number three or four around psychological
Yes.
prosperity. Is that something like when you lay your head on the pillow that you feel good about your day, or is it something different?
That would be part of it. And the psychological wellness and the physical and psychological wellness, they kind of go together in some respects. Because if you're feeling physically well, you often feel well within your mind and your emotions. But I guess the psychological wellness is about it's like the satisfaction that I have, the contentment that I have, the ability to be able to think well. Um, I mean, and think well, experiencing a range of emotions and knowing how to work with them. Because we're designed to feel all sorts of things, and sometimes we don't understand what the emotions are. And some emotions we fear, we think that we shouldn't be feeling them, but actually, my perspective is that they show up for a reason, and we need to understand what that reason is so that it can actually help us to make the changes that we need to make.
And
Okay, so
understand them.
so the psychological well-being is a lot about self-awareness and understanding what's going on for me and what do I need and what do I need right now and can I meet that need either myself or can I connect with other people that will help me to get that need met. Mm.
Okay, so how how do we deliberately think about these prosperity in a holistic way of life, um, and tie it in our understanding to resilience?
Hmm. Yes, the prosperity to me and resilience are completely intertwined. It's like basically if I'm experiencing a prosperous life, I'm more able to handle whatever it is that life throws at me. So a lot of people think that prosperity is only about the future, and actually it's not. It's about what I'm experiencing right now. And there are things that are going on in my life that are good, that are wonderful, that are amazing, and being able to keep reconnecting with those aspects of my life that are going well can be a practice that helps us to maintain our resilience. So when we have a difficult experience, it's like we can actually stay connected with the things that haven't been affected by the difficulty that we're going through. So it's interesting because I mean I know I've experienced this and I'm sure you have as well, Sharon. That where you walk through a situation that's difficult and suddenly you forget all of the 1,001 other good things that are going on around, and it's just like it's such a human thing to do. But I mean the whole idea of the prosperity mindset that I'm talking about is that you're actually noticing how good I already have it. And yes, I might be experiencing something that's difficult, but I've got all of these other things that in place that can help me to find my way through that.
So
So,
do you have a couple ideas on each one of those pillars that might be new for us to try?
um, I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about here is like sometimes, particularly with in the retirement phase, is like people are sitting there going, I feel really lost. I don't know what to do. I really don't know what my purpose
Oh, yeah.
is. And so just a simple little exercise that you might be able to work your way through. Now, but when I say simple, it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but it's just like, but it's like one of the things that happens with retirement is that suddenly I don't know why I'm here anymore. It's like my life has been defined very much by the structure of my work. And when work is no longer in the picture, sometimes I don't know anymore what I should be doing, and I've got no zest for life. So, what I would encourage you to do and encourage your listeners to do is to sit there and recall a time before you were in the workforce when you were really little. When you're a little, really little, I know for some of you that's a long time away, but it's like, what was it that you wanted to do? What was it that really interested you way back then? And have a good think about that. It's like, what were the things that I loved to do before I went to school, before I got into the workforce? What are the things I really, really enjoyed? And and who did I share that interest with? And those kind of those three questions is like think about a time before you were in the workforce. What did you want to do with your life? What interested you? How did you share your interest? Reconnect with those kind of things because you have an opportunity to go back and revisit them now that you've got all of this time. Okay, maybe you were interested in an art activity that you never got a chance to develop. And this is an opportunity to develop that. And you could find other people who are also developing that skill who may be retired or may not be retired, that becomes a connecting point where it can overcome the loneliness. Or you've got an interest in a sport. And maybe you might not be able to play the sport in the way that you used to, but you might be able to connect with people who are into the sport and you can share something about your love for that particular sport and the things that you know about that. And again, it doesn't have to be just other retirees. It could be people who are in a different phase of life, but it's building the connections and opportunities to connect.
So let
How
me
does
give
that?
you an example. I, uh, as a teenager, m- because we had to do chores, and my chore was to milk cows. So
Yep.
when I didn't help mom fix dinner that much because I was out taking care of the animals, but I enjoyed baking. I don't know how I picked up baking, but I
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
Dad's favorite food, cookie was a chocolate chip cookie, but I tried out a couple new recipes, and I brought snickerdoodles into the mix. He wasn't familiar with snickerdoodles, and so I'm a teenager, and um, you just make it for the family to share with the family. But later, I did bring baking into I was working a job where I was working three 12-hour days, and so I had 4 days every week to do something with. So I filled it with making cookies and taking a plate of cookies to the church. So when they went out and visited people, they left something. There was evidence that somebody had been there.
Yes.
And I must have done that for a couple of years, I guess. And I felt good. Every now and then I'd get a card or at least a verbal testimony of people appreciating, having left cookies. Now, sometimes the church staff um, helped themselves to it, or they shared them with the police or
Yeah, yeah,
firemen,
yeah.
But um, I still like to bake, but I've really challenged myself to put healthy ingredients in it, and not near so much
Yep, yep, yep,
sugar and salt and gluten.
yep, yep, yep.
But that's kind of what you're talking about.
And I mean, but listen to how you're talking about that. It's like here it is. I'm doing something that I actually enjoy doing. I something I enjoy sharing with people as well. So it's just like it's not just I'm doing it for me. I'm actually doing it for a bigger group than me, and the satisfaction that comes with that, and the joy that comes with being able to not just make it but to share it is part of the mix that's going on here. And I think the sharing side of things is one of the things that if we don't plan for that in retirement, we kind of lose our opportunities to do that, or we think that we've lost our opportunities to do that. So here it is. I'm creating something, and now my next task is like, who can I share this with?
Well,
Who would?
I'm just realizing that I kind of have a hot button that when people take things to a potluck, they ought to make them.
Yes.
And I never realized before that that's my own expectation. That's my way of loving.
Yes.
And a lot of things at the stores are pretty tasty and might do a lot better job than what I could or they could, But yeah, I have a real hot button for it should be
Yeah.
homemade. So that's
Yeah.
really curious to
It's,
me.
it's interesting because it sounds like there's a bit of an act of service thing in there. It's like for you, the giving of yourself in the making is really significant. And for other people, that might not be that important. It might be about the
Right.
fact that creates an opportunity to connect, and they're a quality time person, and the food is a vehicle to be able to create the quality time. So and it's nice that you've actually identified the value that you have in the making of something. And that is very meaningful to you
Yeah.
when someone has put in the effort to actually make it, that increases the value of that particular thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It reminds me of there's been one or two Hallmark movies around the secret ingredient was the love that was put into the recipe. Yeah.
yes, or the love that was put into making the gift or creating whatever. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's very much an acts of service type of approach. It's just like, and a gifts approach as well, where it's just like I am creating something specifically for the person, and I'm putting my own personal effort into creating that. And yeah, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And not everybody works that way.
Yeah. I have sh- over the years, probably the last 20 years, made almost all my Christmas presents. And I guess I haven't felt quite the same way about it, other than I am creative and I try to put some kind of meaning into it. Like I think
Absolutely.
one of the first ones I did was using making a frame with fabric and cardboard, and I put
Yep.
my picture in one and made a second one for them to put their own picture in. And
Lovely.
that's another year I made tote bags because we're trying to get away from paper and plastic.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how that went across, but this year I am considering doing something in writing. And that
Okay.
that seems a little scary, and yet I bought this last weekend some gift card things that you put on top of the gift wrapping.
Yep.
That is art. I mean, it's this gal does photography under the water
Wow.
and captures pictures of all kinds of fish,
Mhm.
and so they're gorgeous. But um, to make something in writing and then wrap it in a beautiful way, and uh, so having making a gift for each one in writing that's a little different. I haven't gotten there yet, but it'll come to me, I think.
It is interesting because it's like it's when you're sitting there writing stuff, it's like you're wanting to personalize it in a lot of ways, and it's like, well, what do I want to say to this person? And that can take time. And so I can understand why sometimes it's just easier to sit there and get a pre-made for it because I don't have to think up the words as much. It's like, but
And
yes, certainly it's a lovely, lovely thought, lovely gesture. Mm,
well, and it can speak for years to come. You know, my cookies
absolutely.
may not, but my frames for my pictures might.
Yes.
Anyway, interesting way to think about this. So, Neville, either give us, if I may ask, another example or a question that we might uh, ponder and uh, think about as
Yeah.
we finish our session today.
And I guess if we're continuing with the theme of the prosperous life, the question that I would like to leave you and your listeners with is like, where am I experiencing joy and satisfaction and contentment? Because those are going to be the places where your prosperity is showing up. So, where am I experiencing joy, satisfaction, and contentment? And a follow-up question could very well be, it's like, are there areas where I want to experience more joy, satisfaction, and contentment than I am currently? Because it's basically saying it's like your prosperity doesn't have to sit at the level that it is right now. It can change. And if you're aware of like, oh, I'd like to have more joy in this particular aspect of my life, that can give you a little bit of direction as to what you might want to do next.
Good, good. So let's use, for example, and stretch our imagination a little bit. If my joy comes from helping people, and I cannot think of how to help people when I'm in this lonely house,
Mhm.
um, do you have some ideas as to how to stretch our imagination or our heart or our,
Okay,
uh,
okay. So, I mean, what I'm hearing is that there are two of the pillars of prosperity that are coming into play with this idea of wanting to help people. One
okay.
is it about building relationships? Am I wanting to connect with people? Is that what I'm
Oh,
looking for?
oh, okay.
Or is it about me doing something that is meaningful for me, that allows me to use my gifts? And depending upon which one it is, will depend upon how you kind of work with that. If it's about connection, maybe the exploration might be it's like, would I want to invite people into my home for a meal or something like that, and have that kind of lovely, lovely experience of sharing food together, because that is a lovely way of connecting with people over a meal. Do I want to get involved in a game type of thing? And I mean, the meal kind of thing kind of hits both of those pillars there of like it could be some meaningful service for me that I'm serving the people that are coming to as guests to my home. Um, but then it's also an opportunity to connect with them. And I always remember, like, my mother was a wonderful hostess. She loved to host dinners, and she would prepare in advance. And her whole philosophy was is like, I don't want to be, I want to have all the prep work done. I want to have everything done so that when my guests get here, I can actually spend time with them and not be totally tied up with the doing of the meal. So she was very organized, and she had some lovely meals that she created, and she would set it up so that she could enjoy the experience as well, and not just be the one who was creating the experience for everybody else. So yeah, she was getting the connecting, but she was also getting the meaningful service with that. And it depends upon what your focus is. It's like, am I getting more joy and satisfaction out of being with the people or of doing the actual event?
How much
So
contentment and fulfillment do I
Yeah,
feel in the process? Well, that's
yeah.
helping me think about some things for sure. So repeat those two questions as we leave, okay?
Those two questions are is like, where am I experiencing joy and contentment and satisfaction in my life right now? And then the follow-up question is like, are there any areas in my life where I'd like to be experiencing more joy, contentment, satisfaction? And as I said, the answer to the second question may give you some ideas about what you might want to do next.
Okay, well, this is a new version of prosperity, and I think it's going to give us some good things to think about, even as we're going to sleep, maybe, because that's sometimes where your creativity happens. And Neville, I want to thank you for your time for being here, and hello to Australia.
Thank you, and hello to the US, and happy Thanksgiving to you for this week. I hope you have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful celebration.
Yeah, I've been invited to a couple's home that, in fact, she made a point to tell me this is her gift to us.
Lovely.
So
Lovely.
apparently there's some prosperity in it for her. So
Lovely.
very,
Lovely.
yeah, lovely thoughts. So thanks for being here. And
You're welcome.
we'll
Yep.
carry,
And if yeah, if
maybe,
anybody would like to reach out to me, you've got my website address on the top there. You're welcome to reach out to me through the website. So, yep, very happy for that to happen.
oh, bless you for showing up. Thanks so much. We receive
Okay.
your love.
Thank you very much.
All
We'll
right.
see you later.
Bye-bye. Recording, stop recording.